There have been many sad moments in Star Wars. You have Obi-Wan's death in the original trilogy, or Yoda's. Perhaps even that beautiful moment of redemption for Vader. The prequels were full of them, and I remember being an 8th grader and holding back my tears as best I could when Order 66 was carried out. Or when Obi-Wan said, "You were my brother, Anakin." Even in the sequel trilogies, there were sad moments, like Han, Leia, and Luke's death. For the animated series fans, it's hard to top Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order, or the end of Clone Wars with the sacrifice, or Kanan even sacrificing himself in Rebels. But for me, this moment right here, a quiet one with Jyn and Cassian, was always the saddest. In one of the bloodiest movies in the entire series, Rogue One always stood out as my favorite. I'm no longer ashamed to say it, even though I'm kind of afraid of Star Wars fans, to be honest. I loved it from the moment I saw it. And I remember watching a video essay about a comparison of Jyn and Rey, and how it's active versus passive characterization, which is what makes Rey such a better character. And I remember watching that and thinking, no chance, Jyn is a much more compelling character because she is caught up in the rebellion that is real, and where you don't control everything you do, and you need to do whatever you can to survive. Jyn has always been one of my favorite characters, and I loved everyone in Rogue One. I loved Baze, loved Cassian, Chirrut, especially Chirrut, one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And I think K2 is my favorite droid of all time. And the ending of that film, I think, is just the best ending that Star Wars ever created. I will die on that hill. But this scene, right here, makes it even more devastating, in a way that has left me almost too stunned to even do anything after this episode. It's raining by me, and after this episode I took a walk in the rain because I just needed to do something. It reframes everything that Rogue One was about, and the sacrifices that were made. And I honestly think this elevated Andor as one of the best series that I have ever seen. It's a visual masterpiece, yes, but even more than that, it's a storytelling clinic. One where, just like the Death Star, has one weakness and one central point that it is trying to communicate to its audience. The sacrifice that these people made in order to ensure the rebellion's success. And with the latest and final season of Andor Season 2 just dropping, the stakes just got higher. And I will not be able to watch that movie without weeping at this scene, knowing that Cassian had a child that he will never know. It's devastating. It's some of the best writing that Star Wars has ever had. Another hill I will die on. Andor Season 1 was quietly one of my favorite shows of all time. I rewatched it quite a few times, just to enjoy the movements and the speeches and everything in it. It wasn't a perfect show, but I am someone who likes really well-written shows, and Andor felt real. It wasn't quite as dramatic as some of the movies, but it felt like a world where the characters were much more interesting to me. That everything wasn't separated between the light side and the dark side. That there was more nuance within every character. Gray areas. And Andor had the best writing of anything that Star Wars has ever had, another hot take. The speeches, the monologues, the discussions between characters, it was an absolute masterclass of writing. Many fans say that Andor was like the Game of Thrones of Star Wars. It's gritty, political, and an absolute mess of a story in the best possible way. Now, Season 2 came about, and I find myself a bit more confused at this season. The plot was a bit thicker, and the time jumps kind of had me thinking through each character's motivation and the things they might really want and desire. The first 3 episodes were great, and showed how much the rebellion is losing control, not just in the large scale of things, but in every character's life. The controversial scene with Bix was an example of that. And the reason that I think that scene was in there in the first place to show that the Empire is taking control of everything. Then the next 3 episodes showed a great deal about the Grey characters and the things that you must do in order to ensure a successful rebellion. Luthen became much more evidently strange of a character, as the team around him lacked trust in him and seemed to not want to work for him anymore. The next 3 episodes were filled with drama and brilliant speeches. I found myself enamored with Saw Gerrera as he was being intoxicated and radicalized with Willman, or Mon's speech in the Senate. This kind of writing had me gripped. So when the final 3 episodes came, I was expecting what everyone knew was going to happen. It was going to lead us right up to the moments before Rogue One. And it did. The whole last 20 minutes were riveting as anything I've ever watched, with callbacks to K2 and the manifesto that Karis Nemec wrote. Someone I thought who was going to be a throwaway character at the end of season 1 was kind of just sparking the rebellion, perhaps more than anyone else, in this manifesto that he wrote. I loved him in season 1, and his callback in the second was so satisfying. Then you had moments with K2 and Cassian getting ready to jump into their next mission, but not before Vel tells Cass that he should go get in contact with Bix. He says after everything dies down. And unfortunately, nothing dies down, as we well know from Rogue One. Things ramp up and get even worse. And then Andor had to rip my heart out of my chest with the devastation that is knowing that Cassian and Bix had a child, and Cassian never knew. This moment right here, with Cassian and Jyn dying on Scarif, just became to me the most devastating and sad moment in all of Star Wars. I just think this moment with Bix reframes every single frame of a movie that was already brilliant but just got even more brilliant and terrifically more tragic. I always loved how Jyn and Cassian just hugged at the end of their life here. And a decision that the filmmakers could have made about a budding relationship between Jyn and Cass has now turned into something even more crushing because Cassian loved Bix and wanted to be with her. But the rebellion and the Empire took that away from her. And now her and Cassian's child is going to have to live their lives without him. Yet, they are able to live their lives because of him. And I sat after this episode weeping for this moment. The sheer tragedy of it. The devastation at knowing what these people sacrificed for the rebellion. And it's all because of the brilliant writing of Andor. The best but saddest thing that Star Wars has ever created.